Good morning.
Morning.
Welcome to Coffee with the Commissioner here at Flock in Middlesbrough. I'm Steve Turner, I'm Cleveland's PCC, and this is episode 5. So I'm here today with Nicky and Kerri from Arch. Good morning, welcome.
Morning, thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, hello.
So, we'll start with you, Kerri. Do you want to introduce yourself? Who are you?
Oh, well. So I'm Kerri, and I am one of the sexual violence counsellors at Arch Teesside. I also manage our comms, our media and marketing, and I do lots of different things.
So podcasts are old hat for you then?
It's not my first rodeo, I guess. Although it's the first really kind of professional looking podcast. This is great, being in this space. But yeah, so I do a lot of other things. I've just finished a prison project. I manage our volunteers. Lots of different projects that come up.
And how long have you been at Arch?
About 7 years now. I did leave, and then I came back.
We don't talk about that.
We don't talk.
It was a little blip.
Yeah, it was a little bit.
Yeah, I've got a comms manager that left and came back. So we don't talk about that either.
Yeah, I left and came back, didn't I? So because that's just where I want to be.
Okay, and where was home then? Where did you grow up?
Middlesbrough town centre. So born and bred in Middlesbrough, and this is where I am.
Okay, and what did you do before Arch?
That's a long story. So I left and I did a drama, dance, physical theatre degree. So originally I wanted to be like a dance teacher. And then I came back, met my partner, had a child, started my career in counselling, and this is where I am. And now I am trying to merge both degrees together, so there's more kind of dance therapy based, movement based therapy, things like that. So that's a work in progress.
All right. So Nicky, how about you?
I'm Nicky Harkin, Chief Exec at Arch Teesside. I've been there coming up 10 years next year, and I've got to say it's gone in the bat of an eye. It's gone so fast. 8 years in the current job, and I joined as what was called their ISVA manager, which I'm sure we might talk more about ISVAs, but that's how I started in the organisation.
Let's get the acronym out of the way. What does ISVA stand for?
It stands for Independent Sexual Violence Advisors. Team of people that will help if somebody's thinking about or has reported to police. It's a team that will help them through that journey, really. Yeah.
Okay. So 10 years, and what about yourself? What was life like growing up?
Yeah.
School, college, university?
Yeah, I'm local too. Grew up in Lazenby, so just the bottom of the A174, or the top of the Mad Mile, depending on which way you come in. Grew up there. All my family's still there. Visit every Sunday for my Sunday dinner. But yeah, moved away, went to university, met my husband, and sort of lived in Stockton since then. But yeah, very much local.
Tell us something not many people know about you then.
Oh, wow. That's one to put me on the spot. Kerri, you're going to have to go first on that.
See, normally it's the fact that I am trained in dance. That's normally my hidden
Yeah, but you've
thing.
just shared that.
I know
so,
I have, so I know I have to think...
I want you to live in Beijing in China. There you go. That's
why was that?
Something. My then partner's work took us there. Actually, he was my husband, so my husband's work took us there. Got opportunity to go and experience that culture. At that stage, I didn't have children, and just thought that would be an amazing experience. So
on that then, in terms of a direction, and I haven't forgotten you, I will ask you that question again. What led you into this type of world then, into this voluntary sector and domestic violence, domestic abuse? Yeah, so I always knew that I would end up working with people. I think originally I went to university, probably not really knowing what I wanted to do, more for the experience that would bring me, and I decided I was studying law, and quite quickly I think it was in a constitutional law class, I decided this isn't for me. Just far too much structure, and I needed, I think, to work with people. So I was volunteering as well at the time. I used to volunteer at university for victim support, so I was supporting victims of crime, and I just was getting much more out of that than I was kind of from my studies. And I think I left, and I originally thought I might join probation and kind of go down that offender track, and thinking about the justice system and rehabilitation, and
thinking about how we could make things better from that angle. In the meantime, started doing some more volunteering. Started doing volunteering in the bail hostels, and for victim support still, and got my first kind of role working for a social justice organisation, which was quite a small charity in County Durham then. And I thought, yeah, this is much more where I'm going to end up. I spent a lot of my career working in substance misuse, before I left to have children, and then went into community safety, I guess, from that kind of offender, young people angle, and worked for Middlesbrough Council, which is where I started working with the local services, my sister's place, Arch, and really kind of got to understand domestic abuse, sexual violence.
Yeah. Because Arch has been around a long time, hasn't it? So do you want to tell us a little bit about Arch itself?
Yeah, Arch has been around for 25 years. Started in the sort of late 90s as a domestic abuse service. Originally supporting just women, and it was quite a small service doing sort of peer support, and then it started to develop some counselling. And as time went on, the CEO that was there relayed the story to me. It just became really evident that people were getting stuck in counselling because there was so many other things going on in their lives, and they just weren't getting past those things. And really, they were seeing a lot of the women they were supporting struggling with police investigations, the criminal justice system, and in quite an innovative way at the time, they went to the Home Office and said, please fund us, give us some money, and we think we can provide a model of support to really help these women and keep them engaged with the criminal justice process, because I think a lot of the problems then were that, people were dropping out and weren't really staying the course. And so we at Arch really were one of the very first ISVA, Independent Sexual Violence Advisor, services in the country, and quite quickly I think agencies started to see the benefit of that. Police officers would see that with support, women were staying engaged with the system. The women were seeing that they knew what to expect, they were more informed about their rights, and so really the service started to grow from that basis really. In the early 2000s, Arch, or it was called Women's Support Network, in its original inception, took on board a male survivors project that was around at the time called Jigsaw. And Jigsaw had existed as a counselling service, and it was struggling financially. And the CEO, said, look, what can we do to help? What can we do? We really don't want to see those men that have started to open up about their trauma not have the support they need. So Jigsaw came under the umbrella. And we rebranded, I think it was about 2014 to Arch North East. And then more recently...
Does that stand for something, or is that...
Yeah, we always get asked that, and it doesn't particularly. It was kind of that arch of, now we had everybody under our arch, so we were working with men, women, but we make it up sometimes in the office. It's achieving recovery with counselling and hope. There you go.
Achieving recovery with counselling. I like that.
Yeah.
What does Arch do then, Kate? For people that don't know, because for me, domestic violence and domestic abuse is probably the most under-discussed topic and crime that I see in my role, which is odd considering it is probably the most prevalent crime we see here in Cleveland, but by a long, long way. So what does that serve? What type of people come to Arch, firstly?
And I think the first thing to mention is that as a specialist sexual violence service, so you've said there about domestic violence and domestic abuse and that umbrella, and quite often then what happens is sexual violence kind of gets forgotten about. And you're right, the crime rates in Cleveland, especially for sexual violence and rape and sexual offences, is really high compared to the rest of the country. And the type of people that we see are just everyday people who've experienced one of the most horrific things that a person can experience. So we support men, women and children who've experienced sexual violence at any point in their lives. So whether or not that's happened historically and they're wanting to talk about it kind of when they're older, or if it's happened recently. And again, they're seeking that support, whether or not that's via is for our counselling. Often what we see is that sexual violence doesn't just impact that person, it's got a ripple effect. It impacts absolutely every part of everyone's lives as well, from family to work to school to college. So we support in every way that we can, really, and we always try and make sure that if we can't provide that support, we'll make sure that we find someone that absolutely can. Or usually Nicky's dead good at finding some funding to plug a gap.
So if somebody's listening and they've been a victim of sexual abuse or sexual violence, what's that pathway? If what could they expect if somebody takes that big step to reach out and ask for support or help? What does that journey look like for them then?
I suppose it can look different for everybody, so it'll really just depend where they're at in that stage. So what we find is that disclosure can often take place years later. It's often maybe something's happened, maybe there's been a life-changing event, maybe you've got a child now that's the age that you were abused, or maybe the perpetrator has passed away, or maybe you're not worried about upsetting a family member anymore. So it's quite unique to everybody in terms of like when that disclosure will happen and what it might look like for them. But the main routes that people will tend to get to us is, quite a lot of the referrals that come to us will be from the police. So often people think, yeah, that crime's happened to me. I want to tell somebody about that. Whether that's that I want to get justice and I want to see that person in prison or not, I think a lot of people think that they'll talk to police. But actually the majority of people won't ever speak to police. And so we get a lot of self-referrals, people just finding us on the internet, doing a little bit of research. Maybe they're going to watch this podcast. Maybe they're going to think, actually, do you know what? I'm going to talk to them. Yeah. Often they might not know what they want. They might just want to tell somebody else, this is what's happened to me. They might want to work through that with the team that Kerri works in and our fantastic team of counsellors. Or they might want to know, what does it look like if I talk to police? What will that be like? Will I get taken seriously? Will they believe me? And so then, we'll support them around that. I think the important thing is wherever somebody is in that journey, if they come to us, it's their choice. Those next steps are always about it being their choice. We're never going to say that you need to do something or that you should do something. Mm-hmm. So I think we're very much advocates of empowering people and giving them the control over what happens to them.
Yeah, there's a lot of stereotypes and myths around sexual violence and sexual abuse. Do you think, and potentially UK, because obviously you do a lot of comms, do you focus a lot on sort of debunking those myths a little bit, and what does that look like?
Yeah, definitely. Not only kind of from a comms perspective as well. So we make sure that we are getting some of those myths and stereotypes out there, and that we're putting the correct information out and making sure that people are aware of some of those things that are about. But also in the training that we deliver. So we deliver a lot of training to police, to other agencies. So again, spreading that message. But what we often find is it's our clients that come through the door that are armed with their own kind of myths and stereotypes. Like they believe that this happened to them because they were drunk, or this happened to them because of what they were wearing, or this happened to them because of this, and this. So a lot of our work, especially in the counselling room, is about kind of giving them that information as well, and making sure that they know that absolutely this is not their fault, that what happened to them wasn't their fault, it never is their fault, that blame lies absolutely with that person who chose to do this to them.
And would you say that's the biggest misconception, the fact that people come forward and think that they're to blame for what's happened to them?
Yeah. It makes sense as a person, we try and make sense of situations. So if we can't get the right answers, if we don't have the right information, we'll kind of come to our own conclusions, and quite often we will blame ourselves because that makes sense. Well, I was in that place, or I did this, or I didn't do this. So that makes sense. So our work is just kind of unpacking all of that and trying to give that other perspective that actually, this person did this because they could. They made the choice, you didn't.
Yeah. How many people do you help a year, do you think?
So last year, as an organisation, we had just short of 1,000 referrals, and we supported over 1,500 people. So quite a number. At any one time in the criminal justice system, we're supporting around 420 people at the moment.
Right.
About a third of that will be children and young people under 18. And in terms of counselling, you've been to our building.
I have, yeah.
It is a very calm and nice environment. We've got 3 quite small counselling rooms in there, and we see about 100 people a week in that building. So yeah.
And how have you found? So I suppose 2 questions. One that leads on into the other. You've been there 10 years. You've been there 7. Kerri, have you seen a notable increase in people needing your support and your services?
Yeah.
And what do you think's driving that?
I think a number of different things, really. I think the fact that it is, especially since everything came out around Jimmy Savile, so when the high-profile cases happen, I think that helps people come forward and speak. But I think the more we talk about it, the more we make it a little bit easier for people as well to come and talk about, sexual abuse thrives in secrecy. It's people don't often get told to not talk about it, so quite often our survivors are silent. So the fact that if we talk about it, we make it more known, more widely recognised, that when people do feel more comfortable to talk about. But I think just generally, I think the fact that it is getting more and more recognised, I think people are more starting to see that actually this does happen. This happens across different people, different cultures, different environments. Some of those myths and stereotypes that we talk about is the fact that sexual abuse doesn't happen in underprivileged areas. It can happen in what's classed as kind of
More affluence.
Yeah. The fact that there's been more and more recognised cases with people in power positions, and we know that sexual abuse, sexual violence happens with people who do have power over another person, a position of trust. So I think the fact that is more and more coming out in the media, I think, is helping people to come forward.
It's, like I said, it's a really prevalent topic. The Vogue agenda over the last few years has really brought it to the fore. What would your message be to anybody listening to this or watching this that's been affected by sexual violence?
Yeah.
What's the one thing you'd want to say to them?
I think we've done a lot of thinking about how we come across and how we can say that we're a safe space. And when we rebranded a couple of years ago, we came up with our strapline, if you like, and I think that says a lot about the message we want to give, and that's about we believe. So we believe you, we care about what happens to you, and we're with you. And I think, just at a very basic human level, that's what we need to say to people. If you pick the phone up to us, or if you make that referral, we'll believe you, and we care about what happens, and we're going to work with you.
And where can people find you online, Kerri?
Via our website, so www.archteesside.org. We are on Facebook and Twitter as well. But any questions, I always just say, people just pick up the phone. There's always someone there to talk to you and to talk to you about what your options are as well. Sometimes people don't always like going online. We were joking earlier about the app for the car parking. Hate that. I'd much rather pick up the phone and speak to someone. And I think that's just recognising that, at the other end of that phone, there is just another human being who's going to be there for you.
Yeah.
And if I could just briefly say at the end, we're really pleased to be working as part of a national contract, which is a 24/7 support line for rape and sexual violence. So that is round the clock. If you need to speak to somebody in the middle of the night, there is that 24/7 free phone support line that's available.
Kerri?
Yeah.
What's one thing somebody doesn't know about you?
But I did work at the John Smith Spa at Aintree during Grand National. There we go.
Yeah.
It's the best I can do under pressure.
Under pressure.
Under
That's
pressure.
cool. I'll give you that. That's fine.
Yeah.
Thank you both ever so much. Like I said, I've been to Arch a number of times. You provide a brilliant service, an absolutely brilliant service, and it is needed, it is wanted, and I don't think it could be in better hands, quite frankly, from what I've seen. So thank you for coming today. Thank you for being open and honest in your conversations. This has been episode 5 of Coffee with the Commissioner. Thank you all for watching. You can find us now on Spotify, Apple, and various other podcast download sites. which is new for us because up until last month you could only find us on YouTube. So you can now get us on all great podcast platforms. So thank you very much, and we'll see you all again soon.
Thank you. Thanks.